If there's one thing that people seem really excited about in the AI space, it has to be AI agents. And now the idea of this is not completely new, but the amount of development that we've had within the past couple of years has allowed us to create agents that can handle just about any task that a human assistant would be able to do. Now, no matter how busy your schedule is, having an AI agent that can manage communications for you, check your email inbox, do research and draft reports, and even book trips for you can be extremely valuable to just about anybody. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys an AI agent that I built that was designed to manage your calendar for you, make calls to people on your contacts list to set up appointments, and even conduct research for you, draft emails, and get them sent off to people according to whatever objective you might have. And of course, in the past, you might have had to hire a $20 an hour personal assistant to actually handle this stuff for you. But now you can build an AI agent and equip it with tools to accomplish all of these tasks for you in minutes. In this example, I'll be setting it up with a WhatsApp connection. So all you need to do is send an SMS from your phone any time of day, and you can access your AI agent. Now, to give you guys a better understanding of how this agent works, let's take a look at a quick demo, and then I'll take you guys through the actual build so you can understand how it works. All right, just to keep things concise here, here's a quick screenshot of a demo that I did earlier today, just so you guys can see kind of what the capabilities of this agent are. So if you'll take a look at this chat here, you can interact with this agent entirely on WhatsApp. If you want to change it to Telegram or Slack, or even a web agent, you can do that as well. But for all you guys out there who use WhatsApp on a daily basis, this would be extremely convenient to use. So this little conversation here actually takes us through all three functions that I've given this agent. The first one here deals with managing your calendar. So in this case, I was asking my agent, whose name is Alex, if he can check my availability for this Thursday. And once he does this, a command is going to be sent off to actually fetch that date off of my calendar and return to me exactly when I'm available that day. In this case, the agent was able to tell me that I'm available this Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., which is completely accurate given that it has connection to my Google Calendar. And just make a note here that you can also ask this agent to return all of the meetings that you have set up for this week. And in that case, it would have returned a list of all of the meetings along with the names of the people that you have set up for this week. So that's another pretty cool feature. I decided to test the second functionality by asking the agent if he can actually call up a contact named Eric Smith and let him know that I'm free this Thursday for 11 a.m. for a consultation that we have set up. And in this case, the agent will use that contact name that I've just given it in this message to retrieve the phone number, to retrieve that from a contact database I've given the agent access to. And then through a couple of steps, it'll actually carry out that call, and it can even handle simple negotiations for you. And in this case, it's simply letting Eric know that I'm interested in setting up a consultation this Thursday at 11. And you'll notice that once the call is actually finished, you'll get a return message from the agent letting you know that everything went through and the call was successful. So our third functionality on this agent is actually going to be a couple of steps. So in this case, it'll actually do research for you and compose a message based off of that research and send it to a contact in your database. In this case, I was asking the agent to do some research on interest rates in the Los Angeles area, and to send a quick breakdown to Anna Jackson via email. And I gave it some context details here, such as her budget and what other details I would like included in that email. And after sending that message, the agent actually does the research, drafts that message, and gets it sent out for me. And I'm going to show you the result of that in a second here once we get onto the flowchart. But for every functionality that this agent has, it executes the steps and then it returns a confirmation message just to let you know that everything went through okay. So before we actually get into how this agent was built, I wanted to show you guys this flowchart just so you can understand how its tools work a little bit better, and so I could show you that email that it drafted based off of that third step. Obviously, we have our scheduling and booking agent, which is going to be in charge of handling all three of these tools for us. In this case, I've equipped it with a calendar tool that checks your calendar based off of a certain time span, and it also checks what your intentions are. So you can either ask it what times you have available for a certain date, or you can even ask it for what meetings you have booked within a certain time frame. And in both cases, it will return a summary in SMS format directly into your WhatsApp. Our second tool is actually going to be a call-based tool, which is something that you don't really see in a lot of agents, but I thought it would be interesting to include in this one. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to be able to call any name from your contact and discuss a certain objective with that caller. And of course, you could set this up to book an appointment on the back end of this, but I have just got this set up to make the call and to communicate a certain objective to a contact. And finally, you have your research and message drafting tool. This is the one that we just took a look at in the last exchange there in WhatsApp. And based off of that, you can take a look at this little message here that it was able to draft based off of the interest rates in Los Angeles in the context of an $800,000 home purchase. And as you can see, there is some research that was done here, as it actually touched on the 30-year fixed mortgage rate in LA at about 6.681%. And it successfully reassures the client that there won't be any significant impact to her purchase based off of this rate. And I think this was composed very well just based off of that simple message I was able to give. But with all of that said, said, let's take a look at the actual agent build, and you guys can actually get an idea of how these tools are actually put together. So I have my Relevance AI Dashboard opened up here, and there's a few things that we're going to take a look at here when it comes to this agent build. On our main profile here, I have the agent set up as our schedule and booking agent, and this agent description is essentially if you have a whole bunch of agents on Relevance and you need to understand what each one does. This serves as that little example so that you know what agent you're dealing with. The description doesn't have to be that complicated. When you come down here, you can choose all of these triggers to set up your agent. For this particular case, I decided to set it up with my WhatsApp business account, but you could choose Outlook, you could choose Gmail, and you can even hook it up to your CRM if you use HubSpot or Salesforce. If you're interested in more customization, you could even set this up with a webhook on Zapier or Make.com. So the first thing that I think would be important to take you guys through with this agent is the core instructions. The system is going to be running off of OpenAI's GPT-4o Mini, and of course you can experiment with any of these providers and any of the models that they contain, but when it comes to accuracy and convenience, 4o Mini tends to do a pretty good job. So if you're not familiar with the way that prompts tend to be set up, there are several categories that outline the function of each agent. And each one of these categories is going to contribute to the overall instructions that the agent is going to be following. So first up, we have our role, which I've set to be an experienced private virtual assistant who has a knack for providing professional, friendly, and in-depth service. And this role here is where you establish essentially what the persona of your agent is going to be. And I decided to keep things pretty simple here, just because there isn't that much that we really need to include for this case. But in more complicated cases, you can set up this role so that it can understand the task at hand a little bit more clearly. So next up, we have the objective, and this is pretty self-explanatory. Essentially what this is going to do is it's going to be communicating what the agent is responsible for. In this case, you could see I've instructed it to be responsible for calendar checks, appointment setting, and research/message drafting. And next up, our context is just going to give a little bit of background, just so that the agent understands where it fits into your business a little bit better. I just made up a fictional role for Mike's real estate agency, and I made sure to instruct it that its responsibilities ensure a smooth, predictable function of the requests, and anything that you include here is going to set the stage for this agent to be able to function in whatever situation that you have set up. So our specifics are actually where we instruct it as to which workflows and which tools that it's going to have access to. So I have this agent set up to be triggered via a WhatsApp message, as you guys were able to see earlier. And aside from that, I have these three functionalities that the agent will have access to. So the first one is to check calendar events using the check calendar feature. And in case you guys are wondering how you would add a variable like this, you simply would type a / and you could either go to tools here, or you could start typing in which tool you would like to connect here. So in this case, you start typing in check, and then check calendar would come up, and you would just input that in like a variable. But for each of these cases, I have a very brief 1 to 2 sentence explanation of how the agent is going to use these. And if you guys want to read through this and pause the video to see how this is all set up, you can feel free to do so. But suffice to say that all of this is just to allow the agent to better understand the tools that it has access to be able to actually determine when it should use each tool. And again here, I have the tools reiterated here under this tool section just to make it extra clear what each tool is for. And finally, I included an example conversation, which is essentially the same thing as we saw in the demo here. And this is a pretty important step because this actually allows you to illustrate to the agent what it's going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. This is a very simple conversation example, but for the purposes of this agent, it actually serves the purpose pretty well. And of course, there are a few more categories that you could include within this prompt, but everything that you're seeing in this particular example is enough to instruct the agent on what role it serves, what context it's going to operate in, and how to use all of the tools that I've given it. And altogether, this is going to give the agent a pretty clear picture of what responsibilities it's going to have and how it's going to be interacting with you as a user. So as you can see on the left side panel here, there are quite a few categories to go through. The main ones that I was focusing on, core instructions and the tools. But if you wanted to build one master agent to have access to a field of smaller employee agents, you would go under the sub-agent field, and you could use this to create an entire team of agents that would be all managed under your original agent that would sort of act as their boss. And although this isn't actually part of this particular case, I thought it would be interesting to mention that this is possible. Now the other interesting one here is Flow Builder, which actually allows you to clarify the steps that this agent would go through. I outlined it pretty clearly in the specifics and in the example part of our prompt here, so I didn't feel the need to use this Flow Builder to illustrate things any further. But for the time being, we're going to check out the 3 tools that I've equipped this agent with. And under this tool section, this is where you actually add the tools that correspond to the abilities that you want your agent to have. So in this case, you can see the 3 tools that I've set up for this agent. And of course, you can always add more depending on what capabilities you would like to see. And I believe you could add up to 10 of these per agent before you start needing to contract them out to sub-agents, which you would build off in this tab right here. Since we went through this tool first in our demo, let's take a look at the check calendar tool. So there's actually a few steps going on here. Let me take you through each of these so you can get a better idea of how this actually works. So there's a couple of inputs here that are going to take information from your WhatsApp message. And there are 2 data points that we're actually going to be collecting here. The first is going to be the date range that you would like to see on your calendar. So for example, if you wanted to say, find out what times I'm free on Wednesday, it'll just retrieve Wednesday as a data point. Or if you wanted to say every appointment that you have set up for this week, it'll retrieve this week as the data point to search your calendar. And as you can see here, I've actually have this set to a variable of range just so that we can keep it organized throughout this workflow. I have a second input, which I've just called find X. And this is basically what the user is looking for in terms of availability or future appointments. And this is where the system would determine if you're looking for times that you're available or if you're looking for meetings that you have scheduled throughout the week. And both of these are going to be saved to their own variable that you can find down here, and you can simply rename it just by clicking on it and typing in a new name. This is an important step that you're going to want to consider throughout the entire workflow, because keeping track of your variables is going to allow this workflow to function a lot more smoothly. So our next step is actually to check Google Calendar for availability. And this tool is designed to take in the input from this first step for both your date range and your find X. And this is what's going to instruct the calendar on what results it's going to search for. And again, we have that saved to its own variable so that we can pass it along to the LLM on our next step. And for here, I have this set up to execute the prompt that contains all of the variables that I had just set up here. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to return the results from our calendar, and it's going to extract the dates from the range, and it's also going to filter that according to the X category that I've set before. And this is the step that's going to return the summary via your WhatsApp message. And since this is the last step in our workflow, this will be it for tool number 1. So let's take a look at tool number 2, which is the function that actually finds a contact and makes a call on your behalf. All right, so here's the workflow for our tool. And as you can see, it's going to start off with a very similar structure as the first tool. It's going to be collecting 2 variables from the WhatsApp message, the first of which is going to be the contact's name. So in my case, it was Eric Smith. And the second is purpose and objective, which is basically the reason why you're reaching out to them for the call and what you hope to achieve. If you remember back to our demo, I was requesting the agent to let Eric know that I was going to set up an appointment for 11 a.m. on Thursday for our consultation. So both of those will be passed on to a knowledge search. I actually have this set up to retrieve the phone number for the name of the contact in this first step, and I instructed it to only return the contact's phone number when it retrieves the information. I have this set to a hybrid search, but you could also set this up as a vector database search. But since we're just retrieving a simple bit of information here, it shouldn't matter too much the way that you have this set up. The more important bit here is to make sure that you only return one result, because we're only looking for one phone number for one contact. And last up here, I just wanted to show you guys the knowledge source that I have set up here, which is my contact database. And if you want to set this up, all you have to do is create a knowledge base based off of all the contacts you want to give your agent access to. And then you'll simply come over here on this left tab and click this knowledge tab here. And that'll allow you to upload your database, which you'll be able to come over here and select from a drop-down menu. So after that step, we're going to actually make the phone call. And this is actually a pretty interesting one because this operates within Relevance. You don't actually need to set up an external connection to VAPI in order to execute it. So the way I have this set up is actually to import the phone number from our knowledge base search here so that the agent actually knows who to call. And I have this set up to GPT-4 0125 preview. You can really experiment this with all of those available models and see what works best for you in terms of execution and for token consumption. But for our prompt here, I've just set this up to make a phone call on my behalf, and I've inputted all of the variables that would be necessary for this agent to know. I made sure to include the name of the actual prospect so it knows who it's addressing. And I've also set the objective here from our earlier variable to actually give the agent a goal for this call so it understands what it's going to be doing. And I kept this prompt very simple, but of course you could expand on this a little bit more as you experiment with things. And often it is helpful to use the role context specifics formatting that you saw earlier in the actual agent instructions here if you want to make this even more customized. And the rest of these steps are actually optional. I included an initial message just so that I have a little bit more control over where this call goes. I thought it would be most effective just for the agent to ask, "Hi, is this Eric?" or "Hi, is this Anna?" before actually engaging in the call, just to make sure that it's calling the right person and to make sure that that person is okay talking to this agent before you actually proceed. So after that, there's actually going to be an LLM step here. This is what's going to check our call status just to make sure that the WhatsApp message that gets sent as a confirmation, it actually contains the correct information. So all this is doing is it's taking a variable from our previous step, and it's checking the status of that call to see if it was successful or not. And after that, our final step is just to send the confirmation message via WhatsApp. So the only thing that's really happening here is the status is being taken from our LLM step and it's being passed on to WhatsApp to essentially let you know that the call was successful, or to notify you if for whatever reason the call was not successful. So that's about it for our second tool. Let's head over and take a look at that third tool and we can wrap up this agent. Alright, so here we have our final tool, which is the research and message drafting tool. And the way that this one works is likewise, it will collect an input from the user message. There are going to be a few things going on here. The first of which is going to be the message topic, which is going to be the actual topic of the message that we're going to be drafting and sending off to one of our contacts. The second is the actual objective for the message. So the question to ask here is, what do you want this message to achieve? And what is your desired outcome here? And finally, you're going to get the contact's name from the message. So in this case, it was Anna. And as you're messaging your agent on WhatsApp, you'd want to make sure that you're including all of these details in the actual message so that this agent has the correct data to extract. After this first step, we're going to do another knowledge search so that we can connect to our contact base and extract the email from the contact that was mentioned in the message. And this is actually pretty straightforward, and again, I'm just inputting the name as a variable so that we can extract the correct address. And next up is the research step. And although there are a couple of ways that you could do this, I decided to just go with a basic Google search of the topic that we were trying to research. And of course, you could modify the search query to fit whatever case that you're going for, but for this particular agent, I wanted to keep things pretty simple and straightforward and just input the variable from the topic that we had from our user input before. And a lot of this work is actually going to be done by our LLM step. And for my prompt here, I've just instructed it to examine the search results for the topic from our user input, just so that the LLM knows what the subject matter is. And then I've actually inputted the Google search results here so that GPT can actually process them and extract the correct data out of them. Now you can of course expand upon this to make the prompt as detailed as you want to. But in this case, I've just made a very simple prompt to extract the top 3 search results that are most in line with the user's objective. And from here, I've again stored this to another variable so that we can pass it on to our next LLM step. And instead of using GPT, I've decided to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet for this one because it's going to be drafting and email content. And this tends to be my favorite when it comes to actually drafting and writing communications. So all that's going on here is I'm instructing Claude to take the variables from previously in this workflow and format a helpful, informative email according to the objective, while also addressing the recipient by name. Then once this step has been completed and the email has been saved to its own variable, I created another LLM step here to draft a subject line that's relevant to the email. And once that step is finished, the last thing will be to input both the subject and the email draft into a body of the actual email and get that sent off to the address of the recipient. And as you can see here, there were quite a few steps in this tool, and this was definitely the longest of the 3 tools, but everything seems to work together quite well here when it comes to integrating data from your message with retrieving information from a knowledge base, then doing your research, and then using LLM steps to process all of it. So this definitely ended up being a little bit of a longer video than I've done in the past, but I thought it would be worth it to actually go through this agent just to kind of get a sense of what these agents are actually capable of. Now, of course, you could equip this agent with a lot more than 3 tools. You could also expand each tool to contain a much more involved workflow. But just for demonstration purposes, I hope that this was able to give you guys a better idea of not just how AI agents in general work, but also how you could potentially start building them for yourself on a platform like Relevance AI. And I'm actually just about as interested in AI agents as you guys probably are, so it's pretty likely I'm going to be doing more videos like this in the future. So if you're interested in seeing any particular agent builds, be sure to let me know down in the comments, and also be sure to drop any questions that you might have about this build down there so that we can continue the discussion a bit. So that about wraps up everything I wanted to cover in the video. So I hope you guys got some value out of this video, and if you stayed all the way to the end, I appreciate you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.